Welcome. I'm your host, Douglas Gabriel. Today with me is Jonathan Gray. Welcome to the show, Jonathan.
Hello, Douglas. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Well, I'm doing great, but you see, I was perplexed. I've been going out in the world and talking to people, anthroposophists and otherwise, trying to figure out the man-machine dilemma, or whether it's a benefit or whether it's a curse. And what I found is a few minutes talking with you, an engineer, a young engineer, told me things I hadn't even considered, because when we talk about man-machine in the digital age, there's a big divide, there's a big chasm, and I'm over here with the digital refugees, or whatever you'd call them. I haven't crossed the bridge over the chasm, and I have difficulty with digital stuff, but I used to be very involved in it, and then I got out of it. And so you, on the other hand, as an engineer, you are way across that bridge, you're over there in the digital world, and you have perspectives that blew my mind when I asked you a couple simple questions. So I ask you to be on the show so we could discuss this topic. Now, this particular tape, our session, is going to go out to anthroposophists also. So we can use anthroposophical terms from Rudolf Steiner, or we don't have to. But one way or the other, this is part of a program we're doing, trying to really get awareness on this battle that is happening and how serious it is. So I just did a 15-page report, and I've just begun on this topic and on this new article. And 15 pages of the mental, psychological, and physical illnesses caused by your iPhone, your internet connection, your computer, in all this digital age. Jonathan, you have had to be immersed in this very, very deeply. Who's going to win the battle? Man or machine?
Well, I fear that by the end of the battle, there won't be much of a distinction. As we move forward with technology, more and more we're starting to integrate it so heavily with our modern lives. It's to the point where you'll scarcely find a child who will lose a phone anymore, because not having the phone on them is like walking outside without your pants. It's something so pivotal, so important to their very core being, that a person and their phone are almost synonymous today. Who's going to win the war between humans and technology? Well, it's interesting. I think as we move forward, people are going to slowly but surely start to integrate it even more than what we have today. It started off very simple. We had moved towards, having electrical lighting in houses, and that was a great improvement. Air conditioning, heating, which after I had traveled a little bit to places that didn't have it, I learned that they're very, very pivotal. I don't want to live without those. But then we move forward even further, and we have things like cars, and then phones, and then personal computers. The way that technology is moving is that you almost cannot talk about a person without talking about their online, their physical technology, and the presence they have in terms of who they are as a person and what they involve themselves with. We're often defining generations as those in the technological age and those that aren't. And it's kind of a scary notion, because we don't know the long-term effects of these technologies. We only can talk about the things that we know have come to exist, and then speculate on the crazy things that are to come.
Yeah, some of these illnesses, you're touching on them, and some of the illnesses are like depression, anxiety, that your phone is ringing all the time but you can't find it, or that literally studies have been done in China and Japan that show that your brain starts to get smaller the more and more use of the internet. And literally the internet, not just putting a phone to your head and being, having those vibrations, those radio frequencies run through your head, no, or microwave frequencies. No, I'm talking about literally that their brains are atrophying, or that they don't develop if used at a young age. And there's a list of probably 50 different recognized illnesses by doctors. So I'm going to ask you, you were raised in the digital age. You swam around in this spectrum of electromagnetic frequencies and microwaves all your life, and you are a master at figuring these things out. Are you addicted?
Well, I'd be hard-pressed to find a person that isn't addicted. But we don't use that word. It's not necessarily something that people talk about, because it's so pivotal to who we are today. But yeah, I'm addicted. I'll admit that. I'm very well aware that being on this technology is something that I do daily and quite often. But I'd have to say, not quite as addicted as others, though. I know a lot of people that are in this modern age of technology, their electronic presence is their life rather than being a supplement to it.
Well, we have the Facebook leaders, Sean Parker and others, saying that they built it as a psyops to suck all your energy into it, Facebook and social media, and then they're giving you dopamine hits with likes and the way people respond to you and so on and so forth. How do you get your dopamine hits?
How do I get my dopamine hits? Well, I'm a bit more of a social kind of guy when it comes to online. I like playing, you say, video games with friends there. And then when I'm not doing that, I use it for productivity. I'm, as an engineer, a designer, a modeler, and a little bit of a programmer. I like to create the interaction between the digital and the physical world in a way that I can manipulate and use it. So, for instance, Autodesk Inventor. It's a way that you can take ideas that are forming in your head and turn them into 3D models, which you can then, either through 3D printing or going and putting it out to a machine shop, turn this idea that's in your head into the digital world and then into the physical world. It's kind of an interesting transition. But when you're talking about people that are having their lives are sucked away into technology, it's actually, Facebook is kind of entry level. It gets a lot scarier the further you delve into it, and the effects that it's having on people that are born into this technology. I can bring up an example. It's your second life to a lot of people, and this has gone through a couple iterations. We've had some games like Habbo Hotel, which are a multiplayer online experience where you have thousands and thousands of people interacting and acting as if those interactions are a substitute for real life interactions. But as you would imagine, because this was an older game, what you can do in it is drastically limited compared to what you can do in real life. And similarly, this kind of Second Life thing has advanced into a game called, funny enough, Second Life, where you have an entire life. You can put in your own custom model, you can build your house, you can have families and friends in there, and you can build essentially an entire village of people with digital presences that don't want their interaction through real life interaction, but they want it through digital interaction. And these people have all types of adverse effects. People are trying to substitute having experiences in life by going and trying to, disassociate and have experiences that other people have, or equivalently have experiences in the digital world. So much of this technology is making people feel as if they're gaining the things that they have wanted, friends, experience, fun, stories to tell, but they're doing it in a way that doesn't make it their own. You look at something that a person would do in this game, and that's done by just about every last person in that game. You're not having a unique experience. You're not developing yourself socially, mentally, spiritually. You're just hitting those dopamine bursts and having this fake interaction with people. And it can help in some instances, like autistic individuals. This is a way better way than just not having interaction. But that's what you're getting out of it. You're getting out of it something that a person that doesn't have the ability to socially interact, that kind of information. You're not having a real experience.
Well, there are good benefits. We know that. And you've described some of those and also some of the limits of them. I, unfortunately, have been looking at very sensationalistic views of the way that it's harming people, and it's a bit shocking to me because it actually makes people depressed. The more you're on social media, the more depressed you become. Now, I'm on social media, and I didn't know that. But when I first got addicted, and there's internet addiction is a serious plague in this country. No one knows how many people it affects. It's very serious. It has dozens of different side effects from it, and it's usually the opposite of what you might think the connectivity of the world brings you, but it is actually the reverse of that. So as I'm looking at this, I would like to ask you, for people your age and younger, are those young people so addicted that we can keep them from becoming ill? I mean, is it leading to illness? When I look at a group of young people sitting in a bleacher at a game, every single one of them is looking at their phone. My daughter just did a song for Christmas called I want to spend Christmas looking at my phone with you. You see, I mean, really, for us adults who are on this side, some of us think, well, that's just evil. We just need to turn that stuff off. Well, we can't. All commerce is on the internet. Everything's on the internet. And we have talked a lot before about the way that DARPA created it and the way it's actually been weaponized and is working against us. I want to know, is it too late? Can we turn this around with the children, or is it inevitable?
It's never too late. You have to have proper parenting and proper information dispersal. A lot of my generation, people that are now getting into their early 20s, they were born right before the technological boom. A lot of the individuals that I've been to school with, they didn't start off with a cell phone when they went into their high school. That was something that you earned. And I believe that that's a big part of what people need. We have all this great technology, all these great conveniences, but you got to realize that they don't just come for free. You're not entitled to them. If you can see that what you're doing is earning it, if you can raise your child properly with books and letting them go outside and having proper experiences, both social and personal, and then also preventing what I call iPad parenting, where you're not actually watching over your child. You're just giving them an iPad or a phone or a tablet and letting them do whatever they want. You have to let children be children when they're young, or else they will never have the love for or appreciation for nature that inspires them to go and do those things. If all they're ever done is growing up in, a dark room with a computer screen, then they think that computer is the only light that they have. But that's not anything close to what life has to offer. It's not too late. You have to raise your child right, and you have to raise them in a way that makes them appreciate and respect technology for what it is, but to understand that that's not all that it is. Technology is a great supplement, but it is it's no perfect entity that you can just rely on.
Well, it is the panacea of the masses in America, because everyone is basically satisfied with their phone because they get their entertainment, their news, their sports, their gambling, their pornography, their connections to the Library of Congress, whatever you use your phone for. It is like a drug, and we now know that it is even more addictive than heroin. Mm-hmm. We know that it causes addiction because of the dopamine hits you get from these social interactions. My question is, with the advent of the Internet of Things, Jonathan, what is the allure that is so powerful to young people that when they realize that the Internet of Things is really 1984 Big Brother reversed, mm-hmm. and instead of forcing controls on us, we are willingly giving up of our controls of our lives. We're giving up of our free will. We're giving up of our consciousness, our own human ego, our I am, the thing that makes us an individual. We're giving up of that. They think they have individualized nature in the virtual realm that they're playing in with these phones, which is really it's a war. It's really not a game. So the question is, when they're raised on this stuff as children, is the allure of the flashing lights and all of the subliminal things that are going on and all of the control devices, does a child have any choice than to choose the Internet of Things that then will control every aspect of their life, like 1984 reversed?
No, of course not. When a child is raised in such a way that you say you have everything in the palm of your hand, it's like giving him the keys to the kingdom. You can't just take those away. The kid doesn't act appropriately. The phone is a miracle. The fact that we can look up any information and pull it up on the wheel, the fact that we can make items appear into our reality with the click of a button by having it fly to your door on a drone. The fact that you can call anyone in the entire world, that you can get food to come to your place, that you can play with friends across the nation, that you can do all this amazing and immense stuff. You can't just take that away. The kids aren't ready for that type of thing. And you can't give a child all this power when they're so young, or else they're addicted to it. It takes away their willpower. If a person doesn't need to work for anything in their life, then they have no desire to work for anything in their life, regardless of what the actual payoff is. Humanity has a very rough tendency of, if there is an easy path, I will take it, regardless if it gives me worse benefits, because it's the easy path. And I think it's a huge, huge block in a child's development.
I was speaking with some adults, and their 16-year-old daughter was standing next to us, and we led into a conversation about nuclear annihilation and the fact that, we were raised with the idea of nuclear annihilation, duck and cover, and at any 1 second, you're here, and the next second you're gone. And we were talking about this. She was paying attention to her phone. She came in at the end of the conversation. And the end of the conversation sounded like we were serious, and somebody said, well, when the nuclear bomb drops, we'll lose all power, and our substructures will collapse, and so on and so forth. And she looks up and she says, with horrified look on her face, will we lose Wi-Fi? Losing Wi-Fi is worse than a nuclear bomb in the mind
truly.
of a 16-year-old person.
Yeah.
Now, as you said, you nailed it. I say it in this way. In your hand, an iPhone makes you feel omniscient because you can look up anything with a Google search and act like you know it. You're omnipresent because you, as you said, can contact anybody all over the world doing anything you want, tune into people you don't even know, whatever. You're everywhere. You can get a Flickr picture of Outer Mongolia in a place that, people die just to get up there to take that picture. Matter of fact, the bones of the person who took the Flickr picture are right next to the picture, okay? But you get to see it. Everyone in the world is adding to this collective machine world, which has become almost a world that seems to be alive, somewhere between the mineral realm. We take these minerals and we do stuff with them, and then it's almost like it's alive. That computer's alive. And then, but then if you stick your finger in it, it shocks you and you die. And I always call them black boxes, you see, because I think there's a demon in them. And so if you have the cell phone in your hand, and now we don't have to say computers, we have the cell phone, and when it's G5, it's going to be more powerful than many laptops. You're omniscient with Google. You're omnipresent with YouTube, with
Amazon.
Amazon, with all that. As you say, you could have anything delivered to your door with a drone any minute now. And then you think you're omnipotent when you have the Internet of Things, and your phone, everywhere you go, is your connection into this system that is monitoring and trying to keep track of everything. And that phone, instead of being the police state of the Big Brother, it's the device that lures you into it in such an inviting way that gives you those dopamine hits, also cortisol hits, because you get angry on Facebook too. And that's another one of the illnesses. And people, they think they can take things out on people on the internet. All kinds of illnesses arise. So you're omniscient. It seems as if with these forces, this machine intelligence, and I don't believe that there'll ever be an artificial intelligence that matches human thinking, but this is machine intelligence. This machine intelligence makes you feel as if you're omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent. Doesn't that create a certain illness that you think you deserve all that when you certainly don't?
It leads to a very spoiled individual. What an intriguing thing about that is that you're willing to sacrifice your physical limitations, your physical aspects, freedom, security, privacy, being able to be physically fit and active, for electronic powers, the ability to pick up any device and be ready to use it, or the ability to share your information everywhere, or talk to your friends at will. I think that that's a very unhealthy thing to do. You should have a conscious, shared, and knowledgeable use of technology. Responsible. You should use it in a way that doesn't make it so that what you're doing is harming you in the physical realm. There's all types of things that you're giving up by becoming an entity that purely relies on electronics. Let's take, for an instance, a look at an individual, especially youngsters, who jump into technology. There's actually this trend that I truly find horrifying. Individuals at a young age, when they get a toy or get a video game or get anything physical, They'll look at it, they'll play with it a bit, but they don't have any interest in discovering it, understanding it, truly developing it. A friend of mine, their little cousin, got a play set, little house, with like a little bit of those food items that they can pretend to cut up and some pots and pans and everything. They played with it for about 10 minutes before they then looked up a YouTube video on their mother's tablet of individuals playing with that playset and showed it to everybody to say, look how fun this playset I just got is. They're having disassociative experiences. It's as if they're projecting who they are into another person because they don't believe that they themselves have the wisdom or intelligence or ability to truly enjoy something to the fullest. They'd rather watch a personality play it or do it for them. And I think that that's a huge loss. And it's even for things like digital, like video games. A lot of individuals no longer have the interest in playing through and discovering all the secrets. They'd rather look up a guide that tells them exactly what to do, and you're no longer having the experience that you're being intended to do. You're feeling and experiencing and following the steps of those that are telling you what to feel and do. That's the kind of mentality it is. You're giving up your free will to do things, and willingly to then have experiences that are curated and put towards you. It's an intriguing loss of self that we have in the modern day, and that's a lot of the reason why so many youngsters don't have so much of a personality, because the personality that they have isn't theirs. They don't have experiences. They have disassociative experiences. They won't tell you about things they've done themselves. They'll tell you about things they've watched on the internet. Or, yeah, this one great story I read on Reddit. Or this one guy that was telling me about this on this forum online on this video game.
Interesting. That is profound, what you've just said, and the words come up, surrogate I, in a virtual realm. In other words, they give more credence to an I of someone in the virtual realm that they may never meet and who cannot transfer the warmth and love and compassion of a true human I to them through that device. But that is where they find their identification. And that, Jonathan, is one of the most shocking insights that I have had in my pursuit of this battle between man and machine, is to think what you just gave us as this idea. The young child, their I, their ego, their identification is more with the virtual realm than in the real realm. Then, Jonathan, do people truly, like the science fiction movie Tron insinuate, or The Matrix or other such movies, that you can go into this virtual realm of whether it be video games or whether it be virtual reality, Oculus glasses, or whether it's these War of the one that the people are most addicted to, the Warcraft.
Oh, World of Warcraft, yeah.
They're the most addicted to Instagram. And what's it called? World of Warcraft?
There's a lot of info on that. Let me set some stuff straight. You look at sci-fi movies, and then you see these great bombastic things that you think will never really exist in that full, Oh, I can feel the people, physically interacting with me. I can run around in the game and have full emotions and experiences. That stuff, it all moves slowly. And while you don't realize that those types of things exist today, they don't physically exist, but they kind of metaphorically are developing. There are people whose entire lives are literally just video games. People actually play certain games and earn salaries off of working in that video game rather than in reality. You can look at some of these amazing in-game economies where people will spend thousands of dollars on a digital item, and people will actually earn money and sustain themselves just by existing in that. Yeah, the person doesn't physically exist. They don't see through the eyes of the character. But their being is more in the video game than it is in reality. Look at entities that have come into existence like VR chat, where you can put on a virtual reality headset and have this amazing amount of freedom to create your own character. You can fully model, animate, create items and objects and effects, and then interact with this world with other people from all over the place and talk with them in a way that you're seeing through the eyes of your character. And their hands are your hands. Then you can even look at some very, very out there things that
Those like avatar beings? Is that what they call avatars?
avatars is a general term for any digital presence you have. So an avatar can be a little pixel on a screen, or it can be your entity, or it can be your profile. It all depends. But here's an extreme example. In Japan, they have these things called internet cafes, where you can go in and you can rent out this small little cubicle with internet, and people will come by and give you candy bars and sell you stuff, and you can actually live in these things for an indefinite period of time as long as you keep paying, and you don't even need to leave it at all. There have been people who have disappeared, thought dead, but then have found 4 or 5 years later in the exact same cubicle that they've been in for all those years, still playing online video games. So addicted that they just gave up on their real life and exist purely in the digital realm. And
wow. They're Jabba the Hutts of the internet.
Yes.
People bring them the food. They basically, they don't even walk around. They don't do anything.
No, and it's really bad in some ways in America, because some people, some still mentally children, live with their parents and just leech off of their wealth while existing in the digital world. We have a whole lot of people that are no longer moving out of their families' houses, partially because they don't have the willpower to. They've sacrificed that all to their video game of choice. And there is no end to the supply of new games to play. There is an infinite plethora of technology that keeps coming out and keeps sucking you in. They actually apply gambling practices now to video games to make you addicted. They do things like loot boxes, where you want, say, an item. There's 100 items, right? And you'd think, oh, if I want one of those 100 items, I can just give you $5 and you give me that item, right? Well, I could. Or we can gamble. You see, I can have loot boxes where this box has 4 items in it. And every time you get a box, you can open it and you can get 4 items. And every item in that list of 100 has a set random chance value to it. So you say, I really want this item. It has a 0.005% chance at dropping. So instead of saying, here's $5, give me that item, no. Let's gamble. Here's a free loot box. Here's a little tidbit. Here's a taste. And then you open it and you're like, oh man, I didn't get anything. Or sometimes they kind of script it out. The first one you get's a really great purchase. You did a fantastic job. You got the item you wanted. Amazingly rare and impossible to get, but you got it. Okay? Now you're addicted. People will actually spend tens of thousands of dollars on phone games for characters that have certain stats and then interact with you in a certain way. There's a lot of games out there that have beautiful women, usually scantily clad, borderline pornographic, and they have voice lines like, oh, wow, I love you, you're so cool, thanks, you're my best friend, whatever. And there's like a 0.05% chance of getting that character when you spend $5.
Well, these are the absolute overt characteristics of subliminal manipulation, control, and human programming, and creating neural networks in the brain, and all these things that we write about on our other sites. But do you believe, Jonathan, being an engineer yourself, that what we know to be legally possible in this country, which is subliminal control through television, radio, anything, any broadcast can have subliminal control messages in it. Do you believe these video games also have subliminal controls in them that are making children addicted against their will?
Well, whether they're intending it to be so vile and malicious, or it's just by accident, the core principles of video games are the rat and lever experience. The rat pulls a lever, and the first time he gets a pellet, and he eats it. He's really happy. Okay, if I pull the lever, I'll get a pellet. So what do? I would pull that lever again. Oh, I get another one. Okay, cool. And so I keep pulling the lever, but as time goes on, they slowly diminish. The gains, the returns you're getting, diminish as time goes on. And eventually, there's a 1 in 10 chance of you getting a pellet when you pull that lever. But when you finally do get it, you get a bigger dopamine burst. You are happier, you're more pleased than even when you can just pull the lever and get the pellet. You're doing the same thing hundreds of thousands of times. And that's one of the core principles of video games. XP and levels, they have diminishing returns. You go and play games and they get harder and harder. You have diminishing returns. And by the end of the game, you win. You've done everything. Unless it's a phone game or it's a game that's meant to make you keep coming back, like the loot box system. They're subliminal, but it's not because they want to directly harm people. It's because they want your money.
Oh, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, no.
That's American capitalism. That's greed. That's completely fine.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So, just a couple last questions. You're an engineer.
Yes.
They know that they're creating these things. Inventors are making them. Engineers are making them. Now I'm going to make a joke. So why don't we just take you engineers out and stop you from inventing all this stuff? Because why is it that innovation is automatically incorporated into the world without anybody using any moral thinking to say, is this harming someone? Are we creating a weapon? Are we actually going to harm our children permanently? I mean, so that's the joke.
I would argue.
You're an engineer. I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying, is there anybody, our government, is the patent office, does anybody care?
No, of course not. You see, the thing is that
the
if
answer I
it's
was
in the
hoping
way
for.
of progress, we keep moving forward. That's all that really matters. And that's, as depressing as it is, for the people it's harming the most, that's what they want. They want more, bigger, better, faster. And they don't really care the side effects. They want it to be easier for their lives. It's a cycle where they're willing to give money and their time for technology that in the long term harms them for immediate gain and benefit. And engineers, I'd say I have a pretty stable job because there will never be a limit, a diminishing supply of people that are not going to be intelligent enough to want to buy this technology. But the thing is that I don't think it's all that bad. I really think that a lot of modern engineers, a lot of modern people understand that technology isn't an inherent good in the world. And it isn't an inherent evil either. They understand that a healthy mix is the right way to go. More and more I'm meeting people my age that are not willing to raise their children with a phone at the age of 3. I'm meeting individuals that are trying to separate themselves from technology, more willing to move into new realms, or if they are going to evolve in technology, do it in ways that are productive. Be it for business, be it for putting out videos like this, putting information out there that really helps people. Technology in the right hands and deployed the right way is a tremendous boon to humanity's growth. We just need to be cautious. We need to be conscious, and we need to be intelligent about the way that we apply it.
Wow. I was going to ask you one last question. What's the antidote? You just gave us the antidote in the most beautiful way I've heard anybody say it. And I guess the reason I'm so impressed by what it is you're saying, Jonathan, is because you're there, you're in it. You're not like me. I'm removed. You're not like other people who are completely addicted and you can't get a proper answer from them because they can't speak about their addiction. They don't even know they're addicted.
That's right.
So I just want to thank you for coming on the show today. And I had a sense that if I spoke with someone who truly was in it, truly has gone into that virtual realm, lived there, and knows how to come in and out of it with clear consciousness, I was hoping that you would be able to share with us the antidote that so many of us do not have. So again, thank you, Jonathan Gray, for being with us today and being on our show.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Mr. Gabriel. I greatly appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk to your viewers. And I say this to all you out there. Be conscious, be intelligent. Think before you act and think, why is it that I'm doing what I'm doing? And make sure, most of all, when you have children, and when there's the people around you, you try to instill that same consciousness into them. For they're the next generation, and when you're gone, if they're not prepared for it, then who knows what will happen to the world after that. So, keep up the good work.